Hello there. My name is Jonah. Right now, I'm going to tell you a story of how I almost ruined my family, I thought, but got involved in the biggest embarrassment of my life instead. This is Hannah, my best friend. While this story was happening, she was going through one of the toughest periods in any teenager's life, her parents' divorce. And I was trying to do my best to support her. Back then, we would usually spend our days and nights discussing all the patterns of Hannah's dad's behavior, upon which her mom had finally guessed that he was cheating on her. For example, he'd started returning home late from work, as he'd been calling it, or he'd received strange phone calls, and then he would go hide in the weirdest places around the house so that no one could hear him. Well, to me, this resembled a lot of the stuff that usually happens in any cheap soap opera. So once, I'd wondered how come Hannah's mom couldn't have figured out earlier that he was lying to her. Why wouldn't she have been suspicious for almost the whole year that it was happening? I said that if I were in her place, I would be able to recognize cheating just like that. This statement had actually made my friend a little irritated and offended, and we had a big fight. Anyway, this situation with her parents had made me slightly interested in my own dad's behavior. His relationship seemed good with my mom, and there was nothing to worry about in terms of a divorce or anything. I just wanted to have some fun, and it started to sort of shadow my dad. You might call me a worrywart, but once I took a closer look, my dad turned out to be pretty suspicious. He had recently switched to another job connected to security somehow, and his working schedule since then had become an after-dark one. But what was actually strange, that I hadn't noticed before, was that during the daytime, he'd be spending a few hours at the gym on a daily basis. Why would he need to go there every day instead of once or twice a week like everybody else does? I also noticed that once when his cell phone rang, the name BB popped up, and he rushed out of the room so that I couldn't hear what he was going to talk about with that BB. Wasn't that strange? Of course, I had to share this experience with someone, and I told everything to Hannah. Based on her own experience, she immediately said that my dad was also a cheater and that my parents would also soon be divorced. I told her she was nuts, but to be honest, I couldn't say that I totally thought that she was wrong. I knew that I needed to get more pieces of evidence for any of my suspicions to be proven. So once, when Dad returned home from his usual gym session, Hannah and I were at home, and she forced me to rummage through his athletic bag. I know, this was totally inappropriate. But I'd struck at the right moment, and the thing I'd found in there had actually irreversibly changed my life. It was a pink blouse. I felt a cold sweat cover my whole back. It all fit. I didn't want to believe my eyes. Of course, I put that thing back as if I'd touched nothing and rushed to my room. Silent tears were teasing me, but when I saw Hannah sitting there on my bed and looking at me as if she was dying to know what I'd learned, I just cried hard. I couldn't believe that Hannah was right. I can't be the daughter of a liar and traitor. Hannah tried to cheer me up and say that finally everything was going to be okay for everybody, and then I immediately thought about my mom. Even though Hannah said she was thinking that I had no right to keep this a secret, I wasn't sure this was actually anything that was my business. These doubts were torturing me for the next couple of days. I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. A couple of times, I'd even found myself trying to imagine what the other woman looked like. I don't know why, but I thought that she was a tall, curly blonde with enormously huge, semi-permanent eyelashes and Botoxed lips. I could neither sleep nor eat well, and I couldn't stand my dad anywhere near me, even at the dining table, so that at some point, when my mom had asked me what was wrong, I couldn't help but start crying. When I finally managed to tell her about all of my worries about my dad, surprisingly, she just sighed and said that we should have had this talk a long time ago. I was listening to her with my mouth wide open from the shocking information I'd gotten about my dad. Mom said that BB was the nickname of Dad's boss, and that this blouse had actually belonged to my dad. He would wear it from time to time at work. And then Mom showed me some photos on Instagram. I saw my dad in one of them in that precise pink thing. I couldn't believe what was happening. My dad turned out to be a dancer, and sometimes they'd perform a drag show and actually made quite a lot of money for this. They just didn't know how to tell me everything, so they decided to make up a story about a security thing, you know? My first thought was about whether my dad was gay or something. But my mom told me he certainly was not. He'd just tried to earn enough money for his beloved girls, and when he'd lost his previous job, this seemed to be the only option. Then my dad actually joined the conversation, and it became obvious that he enjoyed what he was doing there and the money he could earn. Then he showed me some more photos and videos, and later that night, I was already sharing all of it with Hannah. The next day, another surprise was waiting for me at school. And what I just heard from my parents was nothing compared to what was about to happen. Hannah managed to be way too talkative about my personal stuff, you know? She happened to show my dad's Instagram, or rather, that show's Instagram page, to virtually the whole school. Some of the people there recognized my dad, even though he was in costume, and he'd really seldom visited my school before. So obviously, everybody began mocking me and trying to repeat my dad's dance moves from the video right when I was passing by them. That day, it was Hannah's turn to be sorry for being stupid, and my turn to ignore her. I came home really angry. Both of my parents were there, and I desperately wanted to yell at them and accuse my dad of everything that had happened earlier. But both of them looked so inspired and excited, so I asked what else they were dying to tell me about, and you know what? They showed me tickets to Hawaii. It turned out that Dad's dance job had made enough to be able to afford a 2-week vacation in the Hawaiian Islands. Jesus! I was definitely no longer embarrassed about my dad, and I almost immediately uploaded the photo of those tickets to my Instagram, so everybody who'd laughed at me at school could bite it. Now, guys, while I'm packing my things to spend 2 amazing weeks in Hawaii, check yourself for attentiveness. What time was it when BB called my dad? Write your answers in the comments below the video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.